Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Our Boys, that season. Damn it, I did it in the final episode. Episode 10 is the final episode of the miniseries. It is Chapter 10, A Shaft into a Dark Tunnel. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And we get sentencing, we get the sort of the Avishai on stand actually being, giving his testimony and all that, and we get some emotional beats, we get some wrap up to some different characters. It was actually very similar to the end of Chernobyl at the end, where obviously a lot of true stories do the here's what really happened with these characters next thing, but the way it was, even like the boxes with the text, it felt really Chernobyl. Like, it was almost like it was the same format of how they did it.
It was good to see some of the footage though of the real people versus what we saw in the show, and how accurate that was.
Yeah, Yosef especially, I thought, really, like seeing him actually do the "I'm the Messiah, I'm crazy" thing. Like, I was like, whoa, okay, he actually is coming across exactly like that. But no, it was full of good beats. Obviously, there's some emotional sort of endings for the characters, not necessarily in super fulfilling ways, because life is kind of unfulfilling. And even our poor man Simon, I mean, we'll start with him. Like, obviously he gets his wall sprayed, but he's basically told by his superior that he's going to have to go quiet for a couple of years because of all this attention. Maybe a posting in another country where you can, act as a sort of not a diplomat, but like
I think he said America even.
He said New York, yeah. I think it was specifically New York Airport. I think it was to do with
JFK Airport.
Yeah. So, he doesn't want to go. He's like, what? No, you're talking about? I did my job. I did it well, and here it is. Well, yeah, but you still lose. you still lose in this scenario.
I think the last couple of episodes have really put that on display too. Like, nobody likes you here anymore because of who you are, what you had to do, even though it was the right thing.
Yeah, and because we see him snap. We see him, when he's packing up and leaving his apartment. The guy who was the informant is like yelling stuff at him. Like, oh, this is Simon. He works for the Shabak and he hunts Jews and like all these things. And it's actually the moment he snaps is when he starts like yelling things at his mother. That's the moment where he just like, no, I'm not doing this. And he goes up and just breaks the guy's arm. It's it's really intense.
So interesting because he's been so cool this whole show, like, and seeing him snap like that was you're right, because of his mother. And also it's just a lot more effective because we know that he is somebody who can remain calm in the worst situations.
I think it's another example of just like how this system and the situation they're all in, like, even he can be broken to some extent. Even he doesn't come out unscathed, even though he has been so calm and he has been so forward thinking with how he approaches everything. Even he goes through these beats. And it is worth mentioning, he does go to the trial. He goes for the the verdict. He's the first one there. We have this scene where he walks in and there's no one in the room.
That's right.
And he's just there, and that fades to it being full, and so no, he was here first. He didn't just go in randomly, because that's what I thought. At first I was like, why is he here? What's going on? There's no one there. And then it just fades, and it's like, oh no, he was just there first at the crack of dawn. So,
not hiding anymore.
Yeah, not hiding. Yeah, is he? I mean, I guess he's still kind of employed, but he's not active anymore, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
But it's not like they know who he is, though. I mean, Avishai knows who he is, but like, it's not like anyone else in the court knows that's who was behind the curtain giving a testimony.
I mean, maybe there's footage of him now, and people seem to know who he is.
True. Because
of all the spray painting and stuff. It's still more risky for him to go out there.
Yeah, but he cares. He's invested, and he needs to know where this is going. And and we have to talk about the actual court stuff. We have to talk about Avishai, building up. He doesn't even go to court the first day when we're getting the others being on the stand, and we hear some opposing opinions. We hear the two different lawyers who are both for the defense, but obviously one's for Yosef and one's for Avishai, like them kind of almost like coming to not blows, but like arguing on court about how one defense is kind of like hurting the other one, and asking Yosef to like admit certain things or talk about. And the big thing though is the therapist, the American therapist they brought in to diagnose. And there were so many little beats in this that I loved. particularly when Seagal's at the back of the room, and he basically flat out says, "No, she misdiagnosed him." Maybe because there's a lot of pressure because the Jewish community here, oh, if she gives one a bad diagnosis, like, you know, they'll all like boycott her. He's basically just like trying to trash her credibility completely.
Yeah.
On the stand. And I like the argument though, because when the prosecution gets up, he's like, well, you know, we have it confirmed here that he said to Avishai, stay in the car, you know, what this will give you nightmares. Like, does this empathy line up with what you're describing, this psychotic individual who can't control his actions? Does empathy for the other people, does that really, is it? And he gives this really kind of non-committal, he's like, well, it's not likely, but it's possible. Like, so you admit it's not likely, kind of thing.
Yeah, that was BS.
Yeah, to the point where he even says, how much are you being paid for this testimony?
Right.
Yeah.
That was good. And even though, you know, everything has to be translated for the American to understand what he's saying, it's so well delivered. They're just like, oh, I bet that hurt.
Yeah, everyone's wearing earpieces. Suha's not, like, Hussein's translating for her occasionally, but like, everyone else is wearing these earpieces and they're getting the Hebrew pumped into their ears. So, no, like, that was good, but obviously the big stuff really comes from Avishai's time on the stand. When he goes up, and we see that he's been practicing, he's been writing down everything he wants to get across, he's got pages and pages. The prison guards even been kind of nice to him and try to, like, sort of, you know, oh, why didn't you go to court?
Well, he's not even taking time to go out into the, I guess,
the yard,
like, play area for prisoners. He's not even going out to, like, stretch his legs. Like, he's just so focused on getting this right, getting it done, and making sure that, you know, that he does it right. He only has one chance, and this is his life, you know.
Yeah. So no, really, really cool stuff, and it gets really good because he's on the stand, and it's the defense is questioning him, and he's like asking these questions about who he is, like, and it's funny. I think Avishai, we've been in a really funny place with him, I think, as a character, because he is inherently more sympathetic than the others, the other, you know, culprits. But
yeah,
I think this did it, even before we get to the prosecution, which really kind of hurts him in our eyes, I think, because he brings up some great points. But even the defense, I started to feel like I wasn't sympathizing with him anymore, because it felt like when he starts talking about, you have to remember, I'm so young, you have to remember, like it all felt like excuses.
It felt like it was rehearsed, and yeah, like things that you know, please empathize with me, please, instead of, yeah, they sounded like talking points rather than being genuine. But he does have a really genuine moment where he breaks down, and I think you could see from Hussein and Suha, like, their reactions, they can't help but get slightly empathetic too. I mean, he's like the same age as Muhammad almost, you know.
The performance there is great. I wouldn't necessarily describe it though as them becoming empathetic. I'd describe it more as, because what I like about the way this scene is filmed is when he turns to them, you know, breaking down, and he looks almost silly, because this is like how much he's balling up in his face, and he just says, "I'm sorry," while looking at them. As soon as it cuts to them, it never cuts back to Avishai. It stays in them for the rest of the scene. It just stays in that shot, looking at them, as we keep hearing Avishai say things, but we never cut back to him. We just stay in Hussein and Suha, and I think for them, this is the first time someone's actually apologized, or someone, like, and it's not so much that, you know, you could question like how genuine this is, and I do think Avishai regrets it. I don't know if he regrets it because he actually cares that he killed someone, or he regrets it because of the situation he's in now. I think that's a debate for, like, you know, a whole other discussion, but I think this is the first time that someone from anywhere, instead of like talking about how tragic it is and talking about how much of a martyr your son is now and using it for political gain, this is the first time someone, culprit or not, has just looked him in the eye and said, "I'm sorry." And you can see, like, they're having a hard time taking it in. No one's been this honest with them. It feels like this is a moment of honesty that they can't, and I don't think they know how to process it. I don't think they know, like, because
I do think it's, at least, you know, what's been shown in the TV series, or this is a genuine moment of him realizing that he could have done something, and he didn't. He let things get out of hand, and he could have done something, and he's apologizing directly to them.
Yeah, and we see even afterwards though that Hussein and Suha are still like, no, we still want him, you know, convicted of murder. Like, this is not this moment aside, it doesn't matter. Like, we still want them, and there's a running theme throughout the episode as well. The culprits of the original kidnapping, their homes were burned down, and Hussein keeps asking, like, can we burn down the homes of these culprits who murdered Muhammad? And it kind of,
I think it's some kind of law that they have, that because the lawyer says you have a right to that.
It's this deterrent, but no one seems to be enforcing it very much when it comes to him. And we get to the point where the prosecutor says, hey, like, no one feels the need to do it when it's a Jewish culprit, because the deterrents for Arabs, because they actually do this kind of thing. Everyone in the Jewish community is already, and it's Hussein's looking at him right now, says, you realize how racist this is right now. You're saying that this is a deterrent that Arabs need but Jewish people don't. And he's like, I'm just stating the facts. This is how it is. And it's this kind of thing where, despite the fact that you've kind of wanted to believe that he is on their side, and you wanted to believe that he is kind of fighting for them, this actually kind of feels like, no, to a point, even no matter how sort of he's come across to this point, there is institutionalized racism that is just rampant throughout here, that even in this situation, they can't escape it. Even in this situation, it's like, no, this is what it is. So even though, later on when they do get convicted, and it's like, here's the verdict, even though he does shake his hand and he's like, you promised that you would get them, get them caught for this, it still kind of has this bittersweet tinge of like, but I know who you are now, and I can't fully put my faith in you, and I can't trust you, even though you did keep your word. You kept your word on this one thing, but that's it. Like, there's nothing more to it than that. So, but we have to talk about the even more impressive part of Avishai's, testimony, I think, is when he's being cross-examined by the prosecutor, and he's like, hey, like, you said that you didn't know what the intention was at the start. You know what? I don't want to even talk about that. I want to talk about, and at least in the subtitles, this was how it was phrased. Like, let's talk about your finest moment, I think was the way he phrased it. When you actually said, "Don't kill him." When you actually yelled out, "Do not kill him." And he's like, so so you said this, and it's like, okay, right, so. How long was it, between when you realized that they were going to kill him to when it happened? Like, he's like seconds. It felt like seconds. And he gets out a map and he talks about how long it took to go and find him, and then to drive to this location, and then the actual 15-minute period of actually knowing that he was going to die. And he's like, does it still feel like seconds? You tell me you couldn't do anything, but you tell me you couldn't stop strangling him, because he keeps reminding everyone that he was helping hold him down, hold Muhammad down. He was helping strangle him when Yinon got tired. Like, you couldn't have just not strangled him. You couldn't have just tried to stop Yinon. You couldn't have, maybe even as a more extreme example, throwing yourself in front of Muhammad when they were going to burn him. Like, you couldn't have done any of these things. There's lots of things you could have done, and you did nothing. And it's in that moment, every bit of empathy that he got from that room the previous day, or earlier in the same day, is just completely shattered. And it's like, no, everyone's looking at him now like, no, you're trying to play the card here where you didn't want it to happen, but you did nothing to actually prevent it. And it hurts. And what I love about it from the performance is on Avishai's face, is you see the tear go down his face, because I think for the first time he's realizing that as much as he's tried to try and convince himself, and I think he agrees with him. I think he actually agrees with him in this scene.
I think this is the first time where he has to admit that he murdered someone.
Yeah. So no, these scenes are phenomenal. I think the raw performance from the actor playing Avishai, and just this moment of realization where I think he finally gets that, no, he is a culprit here. He can't just shake this off.
It's well done, because the prosecutor uses the one line that Avishai has been holding on to. Like, I said, don't kill him. He's been trying to say that to Yinon the whole time as well. Like, remember when I said it? I said, don't kill him. And that's like the one thing he's holding on to that makes him not a murderer. And then the prosecutor just uses it against him.
Yeah.
I think it hurts extra hard.
And honestly, I think it does come off in this scene where we're like, yeah, you're guilty of this. You're not deserving of getting a pass because of anything, because you were nervous, like, and
because you were influenced, because you were young, like,
yeah.
We get it. We were all in that position before, where we're young, and people can influence us, but ultimately you have to take personal responsibility for something like this.
Yeah.
There's no getting out of it.
Yeah, and obviously we have several scenes where Ben David's with his family, and we should mention the scene where he actually goes, even though he was refusing before, he goes to see Yosef,
The
and
rabbi, yeah.
and asks him, "Hey, like I know you have problems, I know you're ill, but you're damaging your nephews here, so can you take responsibility?" And I think what I loved about this is,
He also says, you know, basically, I love you. You're still my
yeah,
son, and I I just want you to do this. Don't put your other family's lives in jeopardy here. Like I know you've been trying to prove yourself to me, and you don't need to. I love you. Like that's a really emotional speech from him,
yeah,
from his father, who
but
we know that, yeah, Joseph has been like trying to get the attention of his father. And it's probably one of the reasons why he's in the position he's in, is because he just didn't get the love he needed.
well, I mean, what I love about it though is that the second, because he asks them, hey, do this for Avishai, do this for them, do it so that they don't get this harsh punishment where maybe
Do it for me.
yeah, and he just keeps playing. He's like repent, and he's like, repent for what? And he just goes down the path of is playing the crazy card, and Ben David just doesn't entertain it. He just hangs up the phone and just walks out. And it's almost like he never looks back. It's like, no, okay, I gave him his chance to be a better person. I gave him his chance for redemption, and he's taken the coward's way out. And of course, the end result is that he is just like, because he doesn't get the insanity plea. He doesn't get that. Like all three of them are screwed, as we learn at the end. I mean, Avishai gets a lighter sentence, but
Yeah.
it's still pretty hefty. You know, it's 21 years versus, you know, life and life plus more years that Yosef got. So no, I really like that scene. There was a bunch of scenes because there's a scene where they're not supposed to be doing this, but they've got a phone listening to like the verdict being given out, and Ben David and the family are around the table. And I like that the earlier scene, like Avishai's parents even like bringing up your son is like ruining our son's life, like so, you know, he does feel the pressure from the rest of them, but they listen to the verdict, they hear like the explanation, and it almost sounds like the judge is going to kind of go lighter on Avishai. But he's like, no, it doesn't matter. He still aided in this. He still held him down. He was still there. He's still being convicted of this. And it's this big thing. It's this big moment. And, you know, Simon leaves. Like, Simon, he was the first there, but he's also one of the first to leave. You know, he makes a beeline for the door, like, once it's over. And it's like, you know, does he... And I think it leaves us with this question where I think for a while we were on Simon's side. Like, does Avishai deserve to have that, you know, the same strict punishment the other two do? And I think Simon leaves in doubt, and I think so do we, to a point.
Yeah.
So,
I think so. I especially after the recreation scene, I think that's where everybody kind of turned on Avishai. It's just like, help me choke him because my hands are getting tired. And you did hit him first, and you did drag him into the car first, and I mean, so much of this is on Avishai's shoulders, whether or not he's considered a minor.
And I think when you look at it, like this show in a lot of ways is you look at all the conversation we've had about the Jewish community wanting to like not, you know, really prosecute the idea of Ben David, and people turn against Simon. So much of this show is about not taking responsibility, and I think Avishai is kind of a conduit for that in terms of the story, where it's like, no, he is the ultimate example here of someone not taking responsibility. You know, is the state not taking responsibility for what it's inspiring in its people? Is the state not taking responsibility for the radical ideas that are maybe going around in certain communities?
Yeah, I mean, even the first couple episodes we watched, there were so many people who were just justifying revenge, and it didn't make any sense. But like, there are people in high up places and government officials, and you're just like, really? And it's all in the name of something that they could justify, and it's not, you know, it's cruelty is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, sum it up. Yeah. And we have some other little plot threads that are going throughout. Suhas talking to Toto, and we actually end up in Turkey at the end of the episode, where Hussein's making a speech about Muhammad, and interestingly, Suha like goes to a meeting place and sees Toto, you know, out in the, you know, out at the edge of the dock or whatever it is, and she makes the choice not to go down and speak to her. She just leaves and goes to meet Hussein, and you know, Hussein's kind of a really kind of likable guy in the sense that, like, you know, when he's like insisting, no, I'm waiting on my wife. We're not starting this until my wife's here, and he looks like
Yeah.
nervous, like maybe she won't appear, and she does appear, of course. But for
Hmm.
me, this decision from Suha was like she's making the choice to finally start moving on, and not obsess
Yeah.
about who her son was, even though you understand why she'd want to know who her son was involved with, but. She is making the choice here to just move on, maybe finally after, you know, months of the torment she's been through.
Hmm.
That's what I took this decision to mean, by not,
Yeah,
you know.
I definitely did as well because I mean the only reason she wanted to meet Toto was because she was curious about who her son was before he died. This was a part of his
Mm,
life that he kept a secret from her, and she wanted to know. And then by the time she has the opportunity, and it wasn't an easy thing for her to get to meet her, and it's she just says, I'm good. Like let's move on, go back to the family I have, and move on from this.
yeah, we see you know them go in there to make their speech. We see it the plaque get taken down, the one that Hussein wanted gone, and Simon does leave. He's going to the airport. Like, you know, it does all the sort of your
Well, he
typical.
has a moment with the therapist first.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. He goes and gets some meds because he had his outburst, and she kind of confronts him about how you said that this was in Avishai's best interest, that you didn't think he was a killer, and I helped you, you know, under that guise, and here he is being sentenced. Here he is being convicted of murder, and I have to admit, I kind of side with Simon on this again, where I'm like, well, he turned out to be a murderer. Of course, he's being convicted of murder. um,
Yeah, it's true. And it's kind of a yeah, it's also but look how much she's lost. Like he has to go see her in this building that has no people in it. She
yeah,
has no other clients. She has to take him as a client because she's got no one else, you know.
yeah.
If she I think that if she wasn't in the situation she was in, she wouldn't have wanted to see him again and
Again, I
try
think
to be a therapist to him. It's too personal.
I think it's again an example of destruction that's caused by this one act. It's
Yeah.
ruined Simon's life. It's ruined her life. You know, it's ruined the
Yeah, we just
family.
see two people who should not have like their lives taken away from them, and they just have nothing. They're both just empty.
It's the
Two people
ripple.
in an empty room.
Yeah, it's the ripple effects of everything that's happened. You know, he's obviously the main victim is Mohammed, but there's this spiral effect. Obviously, the
Yeah.
first thing you go to is the family members and how they feel about it, obviously, but then it goes out to this, and we have these two professional people who have had their lives kind of like ruined as they
And
were.
we see in the during the credit scenes where that both Simon and her were like an amalgam of different people.
Yeah, yeah.
Presumably they all were affected in similar ways.
Yeah, yeah, because they say that he represented all the investigators, and then she
Yeah.
represented all the different therapists that were used, kind of in the case. Um,
Hmm.
so, and we also find out that the adults did have their true names. Maybe not the detectives, obviously, because they're secretive, but it was the kids because they're minors. Avishai, for example, was an alias.
Hmm.
So they're very honest about it. They make it very clear, like what was changed and that kind of thing. They've tried to appeal, and it's been turned down every time, and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I'm okay. I mean, sort of had this discussion during Chernobyl, but a lot of people, you know, if a show gets one thing wrong or changes something around, they
Mm.
take it very personally and think it shouldn't be watched for that reason. But I gotta say, like, I think it's okay to have something that's based on a true story to get certain messages across and to use it as a almost like an allegory, but be close enough to the truth to
There'd be too many characters. There'd be like you'd never get to know any of them because it would just be
yeah, it would be a documentary or just
yeah.
watching the news, you know, like I don't, there's a place for that as well. And certainly I'm not going to say that I know everything about this event because I watched the miniseries on HBO. Like, of course not. If I wanted to learn more, I know where to start. Like, you know, I know what to look for now. And I think this has been a really great show about how dangerous it is to be a part of a mob. And yeah, there's and of course, racism, like
Yeah. I
the
mean,
big one of the show.
yeah, at the center
Yeah,
of it all. Yeah.
yeah, and that's unfortunately something that is, you know, can be universal and
Yeah,
a
as well as
universal theme.
It's like I was saying earlier when he was talking to the prosecutor, yeah, who's saying that is that even when people are trying to do the right thing, there's so much institutionalized racism that
Yeah.
it's hard to overcome it, and there's just these rules in place that don't.
Yeah.
You
We're
know,
going to say we don't have that here in America. Like, of course we do.
yeah, yeah, of course. Actually, I read a really interesting Twitter thread this week. Actually, this is not race. This is more about sexism, but it kind of fits in with the idea of like just how things are set up in a way, and then no one ever changes them. It was about astronauts on the space station and how there's these like bars for the astronauts to like put their feet under so that they can sort of hold themselves in place while they're doing things or whatever. But they're designed with like the average height of a man like in mind. That's how it was designed in the first place. So all the men are using them, but the female astronauts are kind of just having to like find
Float.
alternatives and float and try and do other things. And it was just this. It's just one of these little things where no one meant it as a bad thing in the first place. It wasn't like a big deal because at the time it was probably all men, but it's just one of these little things where no one's ever thought to change it. So as a result, all the female astronauts have to try just a little bit harder in certain situations.
Well, I'm sure they'll change it, for any future things. But yeah, I mean, I get it though. Like, if you want to look for sexism, you can find it anywhere. But
oh, sure.
Doesn't mean that it was originally designed for that reason.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but it's sexism by not thinking, by not considering, I guess is what I'm saying. There's probably a better way to phrase that.
Or just short men. Sorry, you can't be astronauts.
Oh well, poor Danny DeVito. He always dreamed of being an astronaut, and he can't quite do it.
Or Mickey Rooney.
I think Danny DeVito floating about in a spacesuit would be delightful. I'd watch that.
Just Frank in space.
Yeah, Frank in space. Yeah, send the old gang. Just the season where the gang goes to space. They're on the space station.
Space.
Yeah. So Jared, the usual opening of It's Always Sunny is like that music playing as they're going past all the locations in Philadelphia, the fountains and whatnot. Right. Instead of that, like just have it going past like the moon over and over again. Do 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 do.
You can end it with the passing over Philadelphia, but like a view from space.
Do you know, if they ever want to stop like doing like a proper show, they could totally just turn It's Always Sunny into Mystery Science Theater. Like you could totally just watch those four characters watch movies and tear them apart.
Definitely.
In character,
those
though.
guys are gold.
Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, no, Our Boys was fantastic. I think the show.
Really good.
I think the show peaked with episodes 2 and episode 7. I think episode 2, the aftermath of the abduction, and then the reenactment in episode 7 are 2 highlights for me. But that's not to say that the rest of it wasn't solid and full of great moments.
Yeah, those are the heaviest ones for sure. But there's a lot of little character moments throughout the miniseries that have been just incredible, and I really enjoyed the scenes with the therapist a lot too. That one scene where she was being interrogated with her husband next to her was really intense. I've been so impressed. I know there's a show that the actor who played Hussein is in on Netflix that was recommended to us to watch, or a show or a film. I can't recall which one. And I'm definitely going to check that out because I think he's incredible. And this miniseries just, I wasn't expecting something so good, and I got something incredible. Like, this is not quite as artsy as, Chernobyl was, but I think it's just as effective in storytelling.
No, this is one of these ones where someone the day before it aired, the first episode, literally said, "Are you doing this show?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And I looked it up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I watched the trailer for it because I subscribed to HBO on YouTube, and so when I see a new trailer for something, I'll check it out. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's interesting. It's a foreign show too. Maybe it looks good, and maybe I'll check it out." But then I didn't get any advertisements for it, and I watch a lot of HBO. Like, there's nothing for Our Boys before, like, I watch, I don't know, Righteous Gemstones doesn't advertise it, or.
It's the same with Netflix and their foreign shows. Netflix never advertises their foreign shows. I mean, presumably they do it in the countries they come from, but like, you know, you have to go hunting for them. You have to pay attention and look for them.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was starting either until, somebody brought it up to you. And oh, I did watch that trailer and it does look good. So maybe I'll check it out. But like, it sort of just appeared on the app one day.
Hey, if HBO want to keep making stuff like this, we'll keep watching them and we'll keep talking about
yeah.
them.
I mean, talk about quality. This was fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And I hope I see these actors again in something.
Absolutely. So, yeah, obviously we do have the finale of Richard Gemstones, very different show from this, obviously. But we're also, like, very soon going to be doing Watchmen. So you can look forward to that too. But you can let us know what you thought of Our Boys, the finale, and everything. And obviously, apologies that it was a bit later, this episode. It was,
it was a messy week.
Yeah, messy week. Much later on in the week than we usually get them up. But hopefully you had fun listening to us talk about it over the course of the season. Let us know what you think. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can like and subscribe. You can ding the bell so you always get the notifications. You can, of course, support us by rating the audio podcast on your podcast app. Apple Podcast being the most common one. Give us 5 stars. More people will find us that way. But of course, you can support us financially. Tara, how can they do that?
You can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV and donate as low as $1 per month. That dollar gets you a bunch of bonus features. We do, sometimes we can ramble, tangent, and now those tangents are available as bonuses for you guys. So you get more. Plus you get bonus episodes of other shows that we do.
Yep.
So check it out.
Yep, go check out Patreon. And I'll wait for this vehicle to pass before I say the next
it's like
part.
a whole gang.
Jeez, god damn it! Hell's
they
Angels.
love going on my road.
Yeah, Hell's Angels going past the window. But that is us though. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you for more HBO shows, if not other shows, and we'll see you then. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any? Yes, Gus. Vanilla.